Alright, so now let's move on to the sole. You have already finished your flap. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the sole. What we have to do is take your main fabric of the sole.
Main fabric?
Yep, which is the printed fabric again. Now you will have to mark out the bottom edge of your flap.
Mark out the
at
bottom
half
edge of the flap, so directly in the middle.
Yes, directly in the middle of the center elastic. So you realize that at the heel area, no, at the back of your foot, you have that elastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to mark it out. So you just have to eyeball about half of it.
Do I mark it at the elastic or at the bottom?
At the bottom.
At the bottom.
Yeah. So at the longer edge.
So this is a bit of an estimation.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's not very hard because it's just really half.
Yeah.
So you can pull your elastic and then you can just mark out half.
Okay.
Okay, so once you have that, next thing is we go back to the sole of your bootie. You realize that at the heel, you actually have a little notch that we made just now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll have to do is, first, where you already marked out the notch for the center of your flap, okay, face the main fabric.
Face the main
fabric down onto the sole of the fabric. So this means that the print should be matching the print.
So the print touch the print.
Yes, print touch the print.
Okay.
And then you have to match the center to the center. So the point where you mark correct to the notch.
Okay.
So your flap, are you looking at the printed fabric or the grey color fabric now?
Grey color fabric.
Nice. Okay. So now you should see that on your flap, right, one side it has an elastic and on the other side it doesn't.
Yes.
No matter what, we have to start sewing from the side without the elastic.
Without the elastic.
Yeah, so in this case, yours should be from the right.
Yes,
from the center to the right, right, and not on the left. Great. Okay, so we are going to start sewing on the side that does not have the elastic. So what you have to do, if you can't see where the notch is because you already marked it from the main fabric, right? You can also transfer the notch to your lining so you can see better.
Okay.
So you just have to flip it and check where's the notch and mark out that center marking on your lining now.
Yep.
And also mark out the center point on your sole as well, where the notch is.
Okay.
Just so that you can see the centers together. Okay, so now what I have to do, you're going to start sewing from the center to the side without your elastic first. So in this case, you will have to start from the left side.
Yeah.
Correct? And then what's the seam allowance for this? This is a 0.5.
0.5.
Means that previously when we were sewing the flap on top, you actually align to the right side of the oval. But for you, now you will have to align the fabric edge to the left side of the oval.
Okay. So a good question for just now it was 4.0. Do we need to change it back to 2.5?
Good question. Not yet.
Okay.
So for now, it's still going to be a basting stitch, a running stitch. But for this case, what you can do is you can definitely reverse in case you're afraid that it might not be very firm at the center. Just go ahead and reverse for this.
Okay.
But why are we using a long stitch? Just so that in case your stitch does not sew at 0.5, if you were to exceed the seam allowance, you can still unpick later on.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll be sewing from the left side of the oval. And I'll be sewing from the right.
Your grey side is also up, right?
Say again?
Your grey side of the fabric is facing up, right?
Yes. Okay. Good. Wow, thank God you double check with me. Okay, so now I have to place the edge of the fabric, both, okay, to the edge of the oval. Okay. And then put your footer down.
Yep.
At the center point. So where you mark. So just now previously I asked you to mark, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Then once you get that center, you can put your needle down. So at this point, because you're starting from the heel, it's a bit small, so it's a bit tricky. So I'm going to go through with you. Yeah, so once you put the needle down, I'll explain again.
Needles down.
Okay, great. So now remember the pivoting technique?
Yeah.
Okay, so first, because your stitch is longer, right? We don't have to go forward 3 steps. Okay. We can just probably go forward 2 steps and then reverse 2 steps. So let's do that first. Okay, make sure that as you're doing this, the edge of the fabric should be aligned. So your flap, right, shouldn't be straight. It should be slightly aligned to the heel of your sole as well, which is that little curved corner.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're gonna go forward. You do it, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you do it for me. Okay, wait. Wait, 1, 2, then I reverse.
Yep.
So, when you're reversing, at this point, it's good that you pivot as well. So you're actually overlapping on the same spot. Maybe you didn't, but anyway. Okay, so now let's go down again. 1 and 2. So after every turn, right, because your stitch is longer, you will need to pivot more.
Okay, so I raise
So, yeah, so just make sure that you align the edge of your flap to the edge of the sole as you're sewing. Probably every 2 to 3 steps, you would have to lift up your footer and pivot. And then lift up to pivot and make sure that the fabrics align. Mainly is the fabrics have to align. Yeah, so just go all around, keep pivoting till you reach the end of the flap. So what I'm doing, I'm actually pivoting at almost every 2 steps, sometimes 1. If the curvature gets too curvy, right, then I will, what?
The curvature too curvy.
If the corner gets too curvy,
Okay.
then I'll have to pivot very frequently. So till the edge of to the end of the flap and then reverse back up. So at this point, you should be reversing, just to make sure it's a bit more secure. We'll see how yours turn out, okay?
Okay.
You might have to redo everything. Oh man!
I don't think we have enough memory cards to film the whole thing again. Okay, I think I'm done.
Yeah. So you started from the heel all the way to one end.
Yeah.
So you have half of the booty done now. I will have to flip this other end that has the elastic to the other side.
Okay.
So you are kind of like closing the flap up, like a flower.
Let me clean up my threads also.
Yes. So after you clean up already, again start from the heel.
Start from the heel.
And you're gonna go around sewing the edge again.
Any particular reason why you have to start from the heel?
Okay, so if you don't start from the heel, first of all, you cannot get the center point. And number 2, if let's say for this flap, right, some of us might think that, okay, I can start from the top if I were to measure it properly. But as you're sewing, because it's a curve, you might not be able to gauge as well as a straight line. So if you were to start from the tip of the flap, here, and then you start to sew, sometimes you might end up with excess or even less. I mean, might not end up with enough of the flap to cover the whole sew.
Okay. Can I start with the other side now?
You can. But you're asking me.
Oh, sorry.
So I was asking me. Please.
So 2 forward, 2 back.
Yeah. Correct. Then as you are sewing at the heel, I would really recommend you to pivot a bit more. So maybe just 1 step pivot once. So you can get really close to the corners. The curve edges, I mean. Make sure to check out for puckering as well. So puckering are just like folded edge of the fabric. I should be aligning the fabric straight so there won't be any folded edge. Don't eat. Don't sigh. Reverse. Okay. Done.
At the end also 2 reverse stitches.
So don't worry about this stitch showing if let's say you sew more than 0.5, because at the end of the day you can still unpick it. So that's the beauty of your running stitch.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we'll clean up the threads. Now here comes a pretty hard part as well. Okay.
Is it even harder part?
Yeah, slightly. Because the fabric gets a bit thicker and then it might be a bit more challenging to sew.
Okay.
But you're doing pretty well, you know, actually. I find that, like, I'm quite surprised that you can finish almost the same time as me. It's either you didn't follow the edge or you're just getting better.
Yeah, maybe it could be both.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now what we have to do is the grey flap, the grey side of the flap is facing you.
Yes.
The light grey side, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you have the whole shoe almost done up already, but you still have the seam allowance on the side. So what I need to do is at the back of the shoe, where your elastic is, at the back, yeah? Okay, you have to fold it down. So the idea of this is to flatten the whole shoe.
Okay.
Yeah, so once you folded it already, make sure that on the edge here, there's no folded edge along your seam where your stitch is.
Oh, okay.
So if your fabric is too thick, or if you don't fold it very flat, fold it very nicely, right, then it wouldn't stay flat, especially at the heel.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so now once you have this, right, just press it down firmly to flatten it even more.
Okay.
I'm going to take the other side of the sole. So remember, we were cutting the lining for the sole as well?
Yes.
We have to face the light grey side down to the booty now. Okay. So it should be light grey facing light grey. Correct. Okay. And then put it right on top to align it nicely.
Okay.
So at this point, if you want to use a pin, you can go ahead and use a pin to just secure the center. But if you find that it's a bit too thick, right, you don't have to. So at the toe area of your booty, right, at the top, so you just eyeball where the half is. Okay, then you can take your marker and mark out the half first. So I just want to find the center of the whole shoe. Are you marking on the dark grey side, which is the wrong side? Okay. So on each side, right, this is the half. So on each side of it, just eyeball a 2 cm gap. If you can't eyeball, it's okay. Check your ruler and then mark out a 2 cm. In this case, I'm a bit more. Just have to mark up 2 cm here on one side and on the other side as well, a 2 cm gap. So I'm creating a gap here, which is a 4 cm opening.
Okay.
Yep. So what is this opening for? This is for you later on, as you're sewing, you will have to sew from one end of the marking that you did. So ignore the center marking that you made. This is just to get the orientation right. So you should have one marking on one side and on the other side here.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, so you should have a 4 cm opening, that gap. So you're going to start sewing from one end all the way to the other end, but leaving this gap open.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, so then...
So that means the 2 cm gap to the other 2 cm gap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. So if you find that it's very difficult for you to pin everything down, you don't have to pin it. Just make sure that you align everything very nicely to the booty.
Actually, this one is quite thick. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, it's quite thick. So it might be a bit difficult for you to pin or even hold the pin in place. So you don't have to use that. Then now what you have to do is, before I start sewing, change the stitch length to the regular, which is 2.5. 2.5, you're right. This was the original setting that we had for the sewing machine. Okay, so once you're ready, just go ahead and sew at a 0.5 cm, again, starting from the 2 cm notch, the 2 cm marking, sorry. And then remember to reverse.
Okay. So this one, because it's smaller now, I have to do 3 and 3 back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why is it 3? Because, for example, if your stitch length is longer, you just need to take 2 steps to reach that point. Versus when the stitch length is smaller, you need to take 3 steps to reach that same point. Yeah. So this is why it's just 2. And so it's up to you to gauge as well, to see how much you want to reverse. So just bear in mind, you should be leaving a gap at the top, which is where your toes are.
Yep. So you can add the toes, is it?
Huh?
So you can add the toes.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, your shoe will be very airy throughout. You'll see?
Definitely this is not going to be waterproof.
And then always check. So as I'm sewing, right, especially at the heel area, I'm always pivoting, lifting up. And then instead of just sewing, I'm actually lifting up the lining so that I can see the bottom where my shoe is if I did fold the fabric down nicely. So I have to make sure that I have to remove the fold at the bottom so that it doesn't get gapped into the lining later on. So just pivot and check the bottom layer to make sure that everything is flat. I'm at the heel now. So as I'm sewing, right, I wouldn't just keep sewing. I will stop at this point. I'm about maybe, don't know, 3/5 finishing the whole booty. I will check to make sure that the lining is not having an excess. So what I have to do is I have to flatten the whole lining again down onto the booty. So you try to flatten it first, don't sew yet. Try to flatten it to make sure that there's no excess throughout.
Okay.
So you're flattening it this way, just so that later on, all this excess will not be pushed to the opening here.
Okay, what if there's some excess, for example?
Okay, so if there's some excess, you will have to try to push the excess upwards towards your footer. So you can just lift your footer up, push the excess there, and then try to sew bit by bit, and then lift up and push it towards the footer again. It's pretty easy to get puckers at this point, so yeah. But we'll see, we'll just sew one round first and we'll see where are the areas we need to unpick, and then we'll unpick.
So let's say there's puckering, do you have to unpick everything and start again?
No, we don't have to. So, great question. We just have to unpick that certain area and then we remove the fold and then we'll start to sew over it again. Okay. So I have to unpick because I realized that at the lining area here, I have a little fold. So I just want to make sure everything is flat. That's when I will, like you mentioned just now, do I have to unpick everything? No. You can just go to the fold. Maybe I wait for you. And then in case you have any folds along here.
Okay, I'm going to do the reverse stitch.
Reverse, nice.
Okay.
Okay. So if your booty, that lining area, right, is flat, then good. But if you realize that you are sewing a lot of folds onto, you're trying to stitch down the folds, right, that means there's puckering there already.
I don't think so.
You don't have? Okay. So I have one. I'll just explain to you. When I have a fold, right, just simply unpick that stitch at the fold to release the fabric. So you're trying to release that fold of the fabric first. So once I unpick that area, normally when you unpick folds like this, you can't just unpick that portion. You will have to unpick slightly further a little bit to distribute the excess. Something like that. So once you have distributed it, hold on. So I still need to pick a bit more. What we have to do now, instead of starting, so you have two open ends of the stitch.
Yeah.
Instead of starting right at the open ends, start maybe like 3 stitches before the open end. Okay. So you are trying to overlap the edge again. So your needle position should be placed just 3 stitches before the open end. So you're going up. Then when you sew down, just reverse back up and you continue down.
If this doesn't work as a shoe, it can work like a key pouch for me.
Oh yeah. Okay. So once you're done with this, I will have to flip. Remember to clean up all your threads first.
Yep.
And then I will have to flip the shoe from the opening inside out.
Inside out.
Yeah. So you just go ahead and flip. Pull the fabric from inside.
Will it rip the threads?
Nope. As long as you reverse properly.
How do you pull it inside out?
You have an opening?
Yeah.
Okay. So you just put your fingers inside the opening.
You pull out everything.
And you pull out everything. Well done like, wow. You're following. I don't know if you're really following, but like, if you can pull out then I guess you're on the right track, at least.
Is it difficult to pull out?
Yeah, so okay.
Okay.
At this point, if you find it's a bit difficult to pull out, right?
Oh god, it's coming out.
Huh?
As in, it's
Oh, okay. If it's a bit difficult to pull out, so then maybe you can adjust the gap opening of your
That kind of looks like a shoe.
Of your shoe. So just now we did at 2 cm on both sides, so it's 4 cm. Maybe you can do a 3 cm
There's
instead.
supposed to be a hole in the front, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you give this to a baby to wear, you have one side very beautiful and one side very ugly. Okay.
Okay, me too. Okay, so if you realize that there are some threads that are coming out, right? They are showing, that's okay because that's just the running stitch. So what you can do, you can definitely take your unpicker and you can unpick it.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can do that for the last part. What we need to do now, we have to baste to finish it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so at this opening here, now you should have the gray side of the booty facing you and you have an opening at the top.
Yep.
Yep, so we're now going to do hand stitching to close this whole opening up.
Hand stitching to close this, the front hole.
Yes. So actually it's not airy at all. Okay, right, then let's move on to that. Okay, so now we're going to finish this booty off by trying to seal this whole gap up. So I know for Clifford, your hand sewing might not be very good. Yeah, so in this case, it's okay. Just try your best to fold the seam allowance inwards towards each other so you can hide the seam allowance.
Okay, so as long as I seal up, the water can't go in, then that's good enough, right?
Correct, and your toes don't show also can already.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you can do is also, if you can, just try to hide the stitch into the seam allowance so that you can actually see on the outside. But what I'm going to show to the audience is the right way of sewing a slip stitch. Okay. Yeah, so first what I have to do is, along this stitch here, this is your basting stitch originally, you can actually fold it inwards. Right now, how do I enter this needle? Instead of entering from the outside, I should be entering from the inside so that I can hide the knot. So by bringing the needle into the opening and then pushing it out at the seam, I can pull it out and that's where I can hide my stitch end. And then now, at this basting stitch here that you had previously, fold it inwards. And for the lining, which is the sole, also fold it to make sure that it aligns with your stitch, like that. And then, right now, you can see that the shoe, where the opening is facing me, whereas the sole is facing outwards. So right now, I'm holding it this way, but I would like to do a slip stitch. So I have to turn it this way, just so that I am able to sew easier, like that. So from this point, my needle actually went into the harder material. Right now, the softer material is where the lining is. So simply enter the next stitch that I want to do from this point where I came out of. Directly below it, I'm going to insert the needle in and make sure that I push this needle right into the seam allowance. So it should be horizontal like that. And then pull it in the direction that my needle went to, like this. So right now, the sole is facing me, but I would want to just do a reverse stitch, which means I have to go backwards just so that it will be more secure. So what I have to do is flip it back again to make sure that the shoe opening is facing, the shoe where you put your foot in is facing me and the sole is facing outwards. So then from this opening again, from where your stitch came out of, this point, I will have to go directly below it at the seam and then I bring my needle in to the seam again. So now I'll pull in that direction to close it up. So one side is done. And then, so always make sure that your needle, if you're right-handed, it's good that your needle is always facing towards that direction. So then I will have to flip this over. From here, go in through this point. And how much should I be moving towards the opening is about a cm away. So this means that I have to fold this seam allowance down. And also for the sole, fold it down nicely first, like this. From where I came out of, go directly beside or below it, and then make sure that you put your needle through the seam allowance and out by 1 cm. This distance now. Previously, the stitch was here. It's around like a 0.5. And now it's going to be at 1 cm. Again, I'm pulling towards the left. So then, flip it back again from where I came out of, directly below it. Fold your seam allowance, just so that it's neat. And now instead of 1 cm, I'm going to go back at 0.5. So the idea of this stitch is to go forward 1 cm, go back 0.5, go forward 1 cm, and go back 0.5. Along the seam allowance. And that's how you can hide it very nicely. So now I'm flipping towards here. Again, fold everything down nicely. This way. Here. Now I'm coming out by 1 cm. So my previous stitch was here. Turn it around. Gonna enter from this side. Now it's a 0.5. So I just keep repeating this step till I reach the end. Alright, so then I'm just gonna do one more. So Clifford, how are you doing on your end?
I don't think I'm able to hide the threads,
yeah.
But I don't think my toes will come out as well. So I think medium, moderately good.
Okay, we'll see in a while. Right, almost there. So just make sure at the end, you should also tuck your edges very nicely in here. Make sure that you push everything out and fold it in so that it's neat. This way. So then every time, what you can do to help you remember is, let's say if I'm sewing on the side with my feet going in, this is always 0.5. When I'm sewing here, it's always a 1 cm. So for example, as I'm going backwards, it's a 0.5. As I'm moving forward, it's a 1 cm. Then I'm going to go backwards again at 0.5. So I'm almost done. Are you almost done?
Yep.
As well? Great. So this would take a much longer time, and also you need more threads because you're doing a backwards slip stitch.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Wait. I'm almost there. Okay. So just bear in mind that you keep going into the seam allowance, and you should have this nicely sewn up already. So how do you hide this stitch? You can actually push it in to your, make sure that you enter the needle into your seam allowance this way. And then at the end, you can just loop your needle around once, twice, and 3 times and pull. So then when you pull this, hold down to the knot and pull the thread. And that gives you a very nice knot this way. Then so to hide this knot, what do? You can again bring your needle into the seam allowance and out. Then finally, pull very tight. That's how you can hide your knot in. And you will have to take a snipper. So once you grab a snipper, just cut at this edge. And there you have your edge, nicely hand stitched all around. We should review how the outcome looks like. Okay, you want to count?
Alright, 1,
2,
2, 3.